What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Binge Down TV and our anime coverage finally returning. I'm trying to think. The last anime thing we must have done was Attack on Titan. The final season, part 2?
Which is, part 2 out of
I guess it was. Because
total.
3 came out maybe beginning of June. The final, hopefully part 4 comes out, later this year? Maybe November-ish, October? I don't even know at this point. So yeah, we've been talking about doing anime coverage forever. We're huge anime fans. We are particularly big One Piece fans. So we've been chatting a lot about doing One Piece manga chapter discussions monthly. But now that there's the live action Netflix show is coming down the pike, I think that will probably be the next thing we get into in terms of One Piece. Obviously, we're talking about Jujutsu Kaisen today, if you've read the title of either the podcast episode or a YouTube video. If you're watching our beautiful faces on YouTube, you'll also notice that this video style is not what we normally do. Usually we're on Zoom, but we're actually all together for this because we've recently become addicted to Dungeons and Dragons. As you can see with some of the materials on the table here. So we're going to play after this. So that's why we're all together. So most episodes after this will probably be on Zoom, but it's just nice for us to be in person together. And I guess Bingetown housekeeping, our patriarch of the company, Jimmy, would kill me if I don't say all of this. So we have been kind of doing separate feeds now lately. So you've probably maybe found this if you're listening on our Jujutsu Kaisen individual feed. Just to let you know, Bingetown TV is a podcast that does way more than just this. We've covered 75 shows. We're coming down on 400 episodes. So I would, if I were you and you like what you hear for the rest of this episode, go to our main Bingetown TV feed, subscribe to that, as well as subscribing to this. Then you'll be in the know of everything we do. I mean, we just covered season 2 of The Bear, Secret Invasion's going on right now, Cruel Summer, Silo on Apple TV has been crushing it. People love that show. People loved our podcast coverage of it. So I would definitely check out both of those things. The Witcher part 1. Geez, another part 1 of something. Just wrapped up at the end of June. And we wrapped up our coverage, I guess, earlier this month. Part 2 comes back in July 27th, so we'll be right back on the Witcher train at the end of this month. One Piece, like I said, end of August. Wheel of Time starts in September, so we'll be here. We've been doing this for 3+ years. We'll probably keep doing it for 3+ more. So if you like what you hear, please follow along with us. We also
give us a like if you want more anime coverage coming to the podcast.
Yeah, we're trying. We always say we're trying to do more. We are trying to do more anime coverage. And the last thing I'll say is that we have kind of started to be more, engaged with our Discord. So if you would like to kind of talk with us outside of the podcast and the comments on videos, we're fairly active in the Discord. There's 7 of us at Bingetown. We all talk about different shows, all that kind of stuff. So anything that you like, we'll probably be talking about it in there. So I would probably best way is going to our Twitter. And there's a link in our bio, which is at Bingetown TV. This is the longest intro we have ever done ever. So I'm going to stop.
5 minutes.
I'm going to stop talking about all of that stuff. And Jujutsu Kaisen, season 2, episode 1. Somebody start talking. That's not me.
Let me go because for our Attack on Titan coverage, this is the recurring cast. So I'm Dave. Kyle's our host for this one. I was the host on Attack on Titan because I was a manga reader. Kyle is our host here. He's not as much of a manga reader as our third friend here, Alki.
What's up?
And so for my experience, I'm only a show watcher, no manga reading whatsoever. And gotta say, season 1 kicked off with a bang, man. I'm happy this is back. Obviously, I saw the movie as well when it came out in theaters. Season 1 blew me away. Did need a little bit of a recap since it's been a little bit since season 1 came out, but season 2 started off so strong, especially if we're getting into backstory about my favorite character on this show, Gojo, so far. Then of course I'm gonna love every second of it. So those were my quick thoughts.
Yeah. Jujutsu Kaisen has been one of my favorite mangas to read week by week, and I was introduced to it by the anime. It's usually the way things go for me. I mean, I watch an anime, I really like it, and I can't wait, so I ended up reading the manga. It's a very detailed story in terms of the power scaling, the intricacies of the powers, and the lore also is pretty deep as well. It's certainly a more serious anime versus something like maybe Demon Slayer,
My Hero.
My Hero. It's not very kiddish, no power of friendship mumbo jumbo, which been annoying me with My Hero Academia lately. But overall, the story did kick off with a bang in season 2 here. You get to see a lot of our already well-known characters, and hopefully we'll uncover a little bit of why the way they are now. So Kyle, why don't you take us away, man?
And before I do that, just to quickly address Dave's point about me not being as much of a manga reader.
Oh, yes.
Alki and I, you're good. You can talk about me all you want. Alki and I have both read all of what season 2 will cover.
Yeah.
So we will have read all of it. He is farther than I am. I kind of
He's
tailed
been
off.
slacking, dude.
I've been slacking in reading everything besides pretty much One Piece.
Yeah, that's
so
why you're the senpai and I'm
I know.
sensei.
That's where it's at this point. So we will dive into episode 1. Not a ton of things happen in this episode, but we'll try to break it down into essentially we'll talk about the mission at the start of the episode, and then we'll get into Gojo and Geto's relationship and their new mission at the end of the episode. So essentially, first half of the episode, we have Mei and Utahime are kind of on this mission to the previous president of Japan is what I got out of it. He had killed himself. They kind of give us a nice little refresher on like cursed energy and how curses kind of come to be in this world. Everyone's just kind of afraid of the place. It has bad energy around it. Students have disappeared. So now these two, our two heroines, are going to the mansion to explore the house. Things become not as they seem. And then we get into a little bit of tomfoolery. So I would just completely open the floor to the whole mission, maybe up until Gojo and Geto show up. So like just anything you thought about Mei and Utahime, exploring the house and the kind of everything else.
For me, it took me a second to remember who Mei was, especially with her hair not being like ponytailed in front of her face. Yeah. So I saw her and I was like, she looks familiar, and I had to look it up. Didn't get any spoilers, thankfully, from hitting up the Wikipedia, which was nice.
That's
but
always so
it's dangerous.
risky, dude.
I had to get the confirmation, but it was really cool seeing Mei in the past also still being a badass, because I do, as much as we haven't really seen too much of her in season 1, she's still led on to be a badass, and we definitely see it in the past with how she's mentoring Utahime, and it was really cool seeing her. And I definitely like her character design in the past more than the stupid braid in the present.
She's one of the strongest sorcerers. I mean, she's what, a grade 1, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
and that is the highest, if I'm not mistaken. Correct.
You're correct.
Yeah. So I mean, she's legit. And we know now that in present time, Gojo is the strongest, quote unquote. So he says, and so people seem to believe. But right now he's only a second year, and Mei is a grade 1 sorcerer. So it's pretty cool just to see.
Let me lay it out too. That was the moment in episode 1 that I knew this was going to be my favorite character. He just shows up and he's like, "Don't worry, I'm the strongest." How do you not love that?
His design is so sweet. Like
the white hair always.
His power is so cool, and he has that like Kakashi trope, but he is a little bit more animated. He has better quips, I'd say.
He's funny. Man.
Yeah, he's funny and he's cool. He like resonates with the guys and the students, and the kids seem to look up to him as their sensei, not only because he is very strong, obviously, but he can relate to them a little bit, and he's been through the same experiences they have. So
yeah, I just like how I love Mei's character trait of that she just loves money.
It
just continued the season 1. That was pretty much most of almost what we got about her character. For the most point, we get it immediately as in her reintroduction in this episode, which I just love that little thread that runs through. Honestly, Alki, you have written down a lot of the differences. I'm sure anyone who has read the manga, watched this episode, noticed some things had changed stylistically. Some choices were different. In this scene, it was mostly that Utahime in the manga is the one who like figures out what's wrong with the barrier.
Yeah. So thank you for addressing that, because I was going to write that down. I was also thinking of just doing all that at the end.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, it was something that I thought about, because I just did it as well. I read the chapters afterwards.
Was she by herself, or was
no?
They
were
together.
Together, and I'll get in. I guess should I just go into it?
Do it now, yeah.
So okay, so they were together, but it just cuts right into the looping hallway at the start of the chapter, and basically, Utahime is like, I think it's overlapping, and I think if we run opposite directions, like it'll break. And that whole conversation of like, that's 90% correct, not 100%. Like, how do I get that 100%? That never happened.
Yeah.
And also the
I
whole,
like that conversation.
Yeah,
too.
it was
I thought
good.
cool how
Like,
she was like, "Oh, you like got 90% of the puzzle solved. You're like, what's the extra 10?" And then she figures it out. Like, so, I mean, I'm going to cut you off a little bit really
That's
quickly
okay,
and just
it's
say,
okay.
like, it sounds like May, obviously in the manga, displayed her abilities pretty well in this scene. And I think even though she wasn't the one to maybe stop the figure out what was wrong with the barrier, they still did a good job at showing she has potential and is capable of being a good jujitsu sorcerer.
sorry, you mean Urahime or
Urahime,
Yeah.
Urahime, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a huge detail. I think they just added it because they needed to fill a little bit of the episode. Like the backstory in the manga chapters is not that many chapters.
Yeah. And I think it's
You
probably
know?
just to beef up May as a character.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Just giving her a little bit more spotlight.
So yeah, and also that whole intro about like the president and that like video clip of his family and all that they never got into that. That was just made up.
I literally, when I went back to read the chapters, it, like you said, starts in the middle of like the barrier scene in the hallway, and I was like, what the fuck? And then I went back, and the chapter before that is May and Toto playing ping pong. And I was like, what the fuck is this missing chapter? And then I was like, oh wait, this is literally where
It's
it
the
starts.
season break. That's what
Yeah. So as soon as this episode started, I was like, wait, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? Because like in some animes, Vinland Saga, for example, there was a couple things in the recent season that confirmed a couple speculations people had online about the manga that they never addressed.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, what the hell is this? But in reality, when you look it up a little bit, it's just some creative. They use their creative license a little bit just to beef some things up, but it does not take away from the overall path of the story at all.
Yeah. And I think for the rest of this episode, once we get to a scene where there's like a noticeable difference like that, more than welcome you just step in.
Okay, sounds good.
Describe it as you like.
We're working out the kinks, guys. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So before we get into our favorite character, Gojo, showing back up, I just want to discuss briefly the opening. Obviously, we have a new opening, a new song. I wasn't in love with the song. I just kind of wrote down that it'll probably grow on me, but I don't love it. And I said that the visuals in the second half of the opening I thought were very nice.
So I'm glad we brought this up because I actually skipped it.
Yeah,
I
smart.
I tend to skip it because sometimes
True.
there's a lot of the times there's spoilers.
Yeah.
So like
No,
I'm
every
glad-
time there were
I was
spoilers in
hoping-
this one.
I was, okay, 'cause I was gonna say I was hoping on this podcast we could tell me if there were spoilers.
There's spoilers. I mean, there's
I'll
not-
maybe just listen to it rather than just watch the scenes, but I feel like that always adds the extra mile to it. But
yeah.
I would say too, even in the first season, like the first two songs, I mean, the outro definitely didn't like catch me like right away. Right away,
Okay.
and then a few more episodes go by, and I'm like bopping.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
fucking-
breaking it down in
the
the
animation
outro.
style. Yeah, so
It's
maybe
so
it'll
good.
grow on you, but
Yeah.
I'll listen to it, not watch it for the next pod.
I liked it. It was like emo punk, right? I thought it was pretty sweet.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it'll grow on me. It's just at the start, I was like, okay. whatever.
Oh no, I didn't like it. It was like that. It was like that math rock shit that everybody likes. It's called math rock. We don't have to.
That's interesting.
That could be a whole other topic.
Yeah.
He's gonna start a music podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about it more. We'll get a new opening, obviously, at some point because
Yeah, like
this-
halfway through. Usually.
Yeah, this will
Yeah,
like the backstory will fade away into like current time, and we'll get a new one. So then we can kind of maybe compare and contrast. So okay, now moving back into the story itself, very quickly, we got the classic anime box of description on people. We learned that at this point in time, Gojo is a second-year student, Urahime is a second-grade sorcerer, and obviously, May is a first-grade sorcerer. So just immediately, as soon as Gojo shows up, obviously the hijinks begin, and just the absolute tomfoolery. Him and Ghetto, it's so nice to see them friends. We learned obviously in season 1 that they had a past. We learned in the movie as well that they have a past. So it's interesting that we kind of smash cut into them like butting heads a little bit. It's not like Naruto and Sasuke, but it's kind of like it in the sense that like they're somewhat rivals and butting heads and stuff like that. So I'm just curious if Dave, you're like what you were thinking as they were just kind of popping up in this scene.
So I'm gonna be honest, it was I guess a little confusing because I think the cold opening of the episode is Ghetto, right? Is it
Very
not?
true. Very
Yeah.
true.
So the cold opening is Ghetto just exercising a random demon that he sees in the streets, but he's going through this monologue explaining how basically he's sick of saving weak people at the core of it, essentially. And then so we get that scene, and then we get into pretty much where we're at now, and then we're talking, and Ghetto is clearly good, and he's talking about how he wants to save the weaker people, and that's what jujutsu sorcerers do. So I think the contrast of how we cold opened with him kind of towards the end of what I'm going to guess is going to be this flashback of him and Gojo having that showdown and looking at each other, one final conversation, and how we're now just kind of going into his nicer side before he becomes evil, which I just think he's a badass. I really like Geto as a person. I think even when we've seen him on the evil side, like he has a bit of a flair to him, like a little personality. He's funny, and we see that enhanced with Gojo's presence, and it was just really awesome seeing. I love when they do the little like shitty cartoon.
Dude, I was just gonna bring it up. The animation and the sound of him walking up the steps while they're having like a somewhat serious conversation, and you slowly see his head, and it just keeps becoming
Gojo's
his body.
like watching him, I think.
Oh, I was just smiling ear to ear. It's so funny. I love it.
So
Definitely love Geto as a villain and as a character so far.
Yeah. You have a little compare and contrast for us?
yeah. So apparently, according to the wiki, Geto is actually considered the most popular among male characters, which
Very
is pretty
interesting.
interesting to you know talk
Most
about.
popular, like,
But that's-
sexy time, or
I
like
don't know, because it's kind of funny, because then it says Suguru ranked 15th place in the manga's first character popularity poll. So it's just not clear, like.
I can see. I mean, he definitely falls into my probably top 3 of characters on the show. And
I don't get how that makes sense
so far.
is it like meta, like in universe?
I don't know,
They all like him
actually.
so much.
Actually, because apparently, according to the first popularity poll, number 3 is Gojo, and then number 15 is Geto, which that doesn't make sense.
The first popularity poll probably took place like midway through the first like arc.
Yeah, it's usually pretty early.
Yeah.
At that point,
because you probably didn't know
the guy.
anything about Geto, but I would imagine his popularity has skyrocketed with the release of the movie and the end of the season.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right. So we basically very quickly just learned that they had been there for 2 days. I only bring they as in May and Urahime. I only bring this up because, like I said, I enjoy the May's character trait of that she just loves money, and she's like, oh, so it was 2 days worth of work. So she's in her mind getting paid for much more than she did. That gave me a little chuckle.
Only real world could be like that. Just like wake up one day and just be like, oh, it's been 3 days. I should get paid for this.
Yeah. And it felt like you only worked 4 hours.
Yeah.
So we go back to school. We just I don't know. Jujutsu Kaisen just makes me laugh a lot. So even though we talked about earlier that it's like very serious and dark, it does make me laugh often. We basically find out that it is Gojo, Geto, and a character named Shoko are like their version of like the trio. Yeah, the triple threat trio for them. They're getting yelled at because they didn't cast a veil when Gojo fucking blew up the whole mansion. So now it's on the news and everything. And the principal is like, whatever, like someone did this, and Gojo's like, well, I don't think we should point fingers. And he's like, it was obviously you jackass.
I mean, it's funny that the principal doesn't really get when he talks, people are always so quick to talk over him and just like brush him off as a side character. I think it's so funny that's how they treat him.
In the anime episode, did Gojo blow up the mansion, or did Urahime and Mei running in opposite directions shatter it?
I thought it was like she thought it was working as she was running, but it became way too big of an effect for it to actually be them breaking it like that. It was Gojo just
so I have in my notes that it was pretty obvious in the manga that like Gojo just blew it up. Like it wasn't really up for debate.
For me, I honestly took it as like Gojo didn't do anything.
Exactly. That's how I interpreted it too while watching. But when I rewatched and when I like read the manga chapter, it made a little more sense. Also, I don't know if it was clear in the anime, like the worm coming out of the ground and then the other one was swallowing the whatever was. Yeah, I know. So that was just Geto swallowing the demon. Like, I don't think they made that clear in the anime as well. That's why he's like, he was like, don't swallow. Like, I'll exercise it later. Like, don't swallow or whatever he said.
Okay, because I had both those kind of thoughts were like running in my head. Like, as we see the shot of the demon kind of come out of the ground, and then it's like a huge earthworm that follows it, and like you do see the face of the earthworm. So that cleared up a lot for me.
I think it was difficult in the anime that I feel like the subtitle came up, but he wasn't on the screen.
Yes, so that's what confused me as well.
Yeah, but in the manga, obviously, it's the bubble that's to him that says "Don't." He's giving that instruction
To the
his
demon.
to his cursed spirit
That
that
makes
he's
so
yeah
much
yeah.
sense.
So
Okay.
Geto,
Yeah.
his power is pretty freaking wild.
Yeah, and that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the whole monologue in the beginning is
Oh,
essentially of like how almost his power has turned him like
Into
against.
being-
Yeah, exactly.
I loved how he described it. It was just like no one knows besides like no one ever will know the
Yeah.
feeling of eating a demon. It just tastes like puke and shit. And I was like, this is honestly like that's gross and sucks, but like what an entrance for like if he's the only one that has this ability, that already puts him in a tier of him like by himself.
I am really excited to watch this arc get animated, so I can't wait to watch more of Geto actually in action.
And I will say, just to keep going, we're just kind of rambling now, but Alki is always like, Alki will tell us, you got to read this, but like JJK was always one that like he was in the process of reading My Hero, and we had always heard him, vouch for My Hero. But then like JJK came in, he read it, and he was like, forget everything I said about any other manga. Like reading JJK is great. So this is already implanted in for me. Like the expectations of this season are going to be high, and I fully expect them to be met.
I have to
no
say,
worries.
while I did read past Kyle, I think Kyle put me on to JJK.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, you put me on to JJK.
Yeah,
So
I remember-
can't thank you, Dave, but I can't take all the credit there.
I remember all the bathroom breaks working at Hill's Quality Seafood would just be consumed by reading JJK chapters.
Yeah.
And then we would text about it.
Yeah. And it was for a while. It was just
Because I think I was like, you got to read Vagabond, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
made you read that, and I read JJK.
yeah. What a good deal that was.
That was a good deal.
That's
What an
what a
exchange.
solid deal that
What a
is.
solid fantasy trade.
Yeah, that's probably the best deal in history I've ever heard of. All right, so
Nah, the OG one was me and Luke swapping Naruto and One Piece in fifth
Dude,
grade.
okay, that's yeah.
That was the first domino.
That's actually insane. Okay, so we're back at school, like I had just said, and we get into a scene where they're playing basketball in the gymnasium.
Yeah, it didn't
Oh, that was-
happen.
I think it was so cool.
Yeah, and then Gojo and Geto kind of get into this like moral, philosophical discussion about what it actually means to use jujitsu and be a sorcerer. I guess, Dave, maybe what are your thoughts on kind of that discussion between the two of them?
I mean, it kind of draws on what I was talking about earlier. Like their personalities flipped almost to the extremes of the opposite.
Yeah.
Like Gojo is now pure. I guess you would say pure good in a sense. He's fighting for the good. He realizes that he needs to teach the younger generation to replace the older generation who is, totally outdated and corrupt a little bit. And so Gojo does have those good intentions, whereas Geto has now separated himself from all those lines that he was saying while they were playing basketball about, we have to protect the weak. Like it's survival of the weakest, not strongest, is what he says.
Yeah, and I just was so interesting hearing that phrase. I feel like I've never heard that.
Yeah, it definitely caught my ears. I was like, that sounds so weird hearing that
Yeah,
presented that way.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
really cool scene. I was upset. I think Geto takes a shot and he misses, and I'm like, that would like if Geto were to fucking shoot a basketball, that thing is going in.
That
10 out
bothered
of
me
10.
too.
Yeah,
That bothered me too. Like both of them shot and missed.
Gojo's went in. I think he maybe the first one missed. It was like a layup or
He
something.
definitely
But
missed one.
The second one, he like hurls
Yeah.
at the basket.
Yeah.
And like off a bank too. It goes in. It's not even like a swish.
they get into it too because Gojo obviously responds and he's his cocky classic self and kind of lobs an insult into Geto, and then they start to square up a little
I
bit.
knew it was gonna get interrupted.
Yeah.
I was so
You
pissed.
see like the crack and like the
Yeah.
eye and like the curse spirit
Oh.
starts to come out a little bit. He's like, "You want to take this outside?" And it's like, "Oh,
I had a
baby."
quick moment of like, this is gonna happen, and then I was like,
Yeah.
it's not.
And then classic, the principal comes in, ruins our moment that we wanted to have so badly, and essentially assigns the two of them a new mission. Very brief overview of this mission is that Tengen-sama, who we learned a little bit about in season 1, but we kind of get a little bit of a re-education on him. Essentially, his power it's a curse technique of immortality, not eternal youth. So every 500 years, he needs a new body to kind of stop himself from becoming like an elevated higher level of being and things like that. So he personally requested Gojo and Geto to find what's called the star plasma vessel, which is the body that he needs. And the principal's a little wary about giving them this mission, but they do get assigned this obviously mission of high importance.
I just want to say, I feel sorry, Alki. I'm just like Kyle speaks and
You're
it's just
good.
going right into me. I'm sorry, but I just feel like this must be like the strongest like this jujitsu tech has ever been, because like Gojo in his second year with Geto in his second year are handling a mission that should be held that should be done by all these first grade sorcerers. and like they're just giving it to students. I don't know, like that class just reigns so much more supreme than like our current class right now.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because their opponent, like the people who they're fighting against, the Q group and the Star Vessel, like all the strongest sorcerers are with Jujutsu High or with that other faction from Kyoto. So like, they're not like fighting like
as far as we know,
strongest. Yeah, as far as we know. So and you'd think somebody like Tengen, who clearly has been around for the block. I feel like there's might be an underlying reason why he picked them.
There definitely has to be, obviously. Like again, they've shown themselves to be way ahead of their time in terms of skill. So I think he maybe just wants to polish those skills a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's obviously just Tengen putting respect on specifically Gojo and Geto.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just, I don't know. The principal, I'm in the manga, he says, I remember because I read the manga chapters right after I watched the show, but he essentially says that like this is a mission that like the fate of society itself is resting on this. So like don't fuck it up. Because Geto says like all of the barriers for all of the jujitsu schools, like pretty much the whole like jujitsu world is like being sustained and held up by Tengen. And like if he became a threat to mankind because this doesn't work out, like that's gonna be so fucked up. It's just so funny.
Now I'm already like in my head, I'm just like, I want Tengen to reach that point of like evolution so I can see how actually like what he's actually capable of. I mean, maybe later down the line we'll see that, like that'll be a storyline, but one crisis at a time.
All I'll say for those watching that don't read the manga, keep Tengen's name.
Yeah, that was a name that I had to also kind of like, I didn't want to look too much into, but I wanted to make sure that was a character we had been alluded to.
Yeah, be careful.
Basically when Mahito, and we are obviously just throwing out our own personal pronunciations of every name.
It's Mahito.
Okay, yeah. So the goal of interrupting like the Goodwill event, like the tournament battle thing, was so they could get to like near Tengen and do something with Tengen. I don't want to like speak any like more specific because I'll probably get it wrong, but that's kind of how we know about Tengen in season 1.
They were trying to break into the school.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. One thing I'm going to jump back a little bit on because you had brought, what was the third character in the trio?
Shoko.
Just looked identical to Maki. Like legitimately, like that just can't be a red herring. There's something there. Obviously, I just want to put that in the board.
Maybe, yeah.
And we don't get a ton of her. We get the fact that she leaves when she knows, obviously, that Geto and I almost called him Shoyo. Out of the goat. Gojo are about to fight. She runs away.
So I don't know if you realize this. Shoko's the doctor. Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, now
so it's not really it's not really
so
much.
It's nothing.
Yeah, but I think they might have just drawn her. In my opinion, in the manga, she looks similar to Nobara, but she doesn't look as closely. She doesn't look identical to her the way she does in the anime.
I think it's probably just a representation of
like the trio.
Yeah, because
exactly
it's kind of like Tsunade,
parallel.
Jiraiya, Orochimaru going into
even though those three look nothing like Naruto
in terms of maybe like the stage ability.
I know what you mean though. I know what you
mean. But the basketball scene didn't happen in the manga.
Yeah,
it was just but the conversation kind of did happen.
The conversation happens. They're just sitting at a table. It's like
the same classroom.
So interested to know why they chose them to go to the auditorium and play basketball.
It must be to like just reach the younger audience. Like the scene would just be more like people would be more caught off by them playing a sport that they recognize rather than just sitting at a table.
I think it's just, I don't know. It's just try to be more.
I already like it.
Honestly,
it's just now that eye catching.
I'm thinking about it. It's really, I think, just like a metaphor for the competition between the two of them.
Yeah, that too. There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's kind of just like it's putting that idea in your head more so, obviously, than them just sitting at chairs next to each other. Like
they're no stranger to sports, though. I mean, episode 1.
They play baseball.
No, he's like
that's like the ending of the.
He's
Goodwill
like a track star, He's a runner. He's a track star.
Yeah.
Like,
he fucking
shot
put. Yeah, no, for sure. All right, so now we kind of get into, we've got the mission. Now it is Gojo and Geto going to the Star Plasma Vessel, I guess her apartment, you could say. At this one, we don't know it's a her, but obviously now that we've watched the episode, we know it's a her. They're discussing the two groups that are also after her that the principal informed them about. We get Curse User Group Q and the Time Vessel Association. Gojo obviously is just completely in the dark about everything, so Geto naturally has to inform him that the Curse User Group Q has curse users, that have jujutsu sorcerers, while the Time Vessel Association is more of a religious group. They don't really have to worry about them because they don't have any sorcerers with them.
What side hates Tengen? Do they both hate Tengen, or one side?
No.
Is
No,
it the
they
religious
both-
group? No, the religious group likes
They
Tengen
love
because
him.
they think he's a god. The
Yeah.
other group is like,
Other group sees him as a useful opportunity to like create upheaval in the jujutsu world.
okay, right.
The
Essentially.
Time Vessel people want to keep him pure. They don't want him to get a new
Absorbing,
body.
yeah, like people who they don't see as worthy.
Yeah,
to
well,
absorb his
I think it's more like they want to keep Tengen the way he is
Yes.
now.
Oh,
Because
that's
that's the
like
deity.
the perfect form.
Yeah,
That's a deity
Yeah.
they worship,
Okay.
not this
girl.
whatever it is.
Basically,
yeah.
like I guess they're probably not as much in the know of that he does this every 500 years.
Mhm.
I think maybe this
Right,
is like the first time
exactly.
this organization's been around, they're
Yeah.
hearing of this and they're like, oh my god, no,
Sure.
Tengen.
Exactly. Like the only Tengen they know is quote unquote this one.
Yeah,
So they don't want to they don't want him to go. They're interpreting it as
Impure.
like he's leaving or going somewhere,
Yeah,
like
or changing.
changing.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Whoa.
Jake, show me some-
Look at that wavelength, bro. That's that vagabond JJK wavelength. All right. So Geto kind of just keeps talking, tells Gojo what we all know and love about Gojo is probably going to be a little bit of an issue at this point in his life, that he's just he's just kind of a gung-ho guy, doesn't really care what he says. That obviously is just like a little seed more of their relationship. But then we get Geto. Their names are so similar. I'm
Gojo.
fighting for
That's
my
the
life
po-
over
I think
here.
it's the point.
Yeah.
though.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know, it's like to be their antithesis. They're an antithesis of each other. You know.
I like it. And like Dave said, they kind of do have that morality flop a little bit, as that we know about. Obviously, now that we've kind of experienced it in this episode, we're now kind of anticipating that event will happen. When will it happen? What would it look like? Obviously, I think that's the major hook for this part of the season. And the kind of ending of this episode is that we get an explosion in the apartment. Geto's a beast, saves himself, also saves the vessel, and then they kind of have a little bit of a square off. Each Geto squares off against the guy that was in the apartment, whose name I did not write down. And
Neither did
then
I.
Gojo on the
They're about to be dead. Next
I don't know if
episode
we
anyway.
need to care about them so much. Gojo then has a little bit of a square up with, actually the guy's name was Bayer, who throws all the knives at Gojo.
He was a cool seeming character, but again, like they just
With his
in my
back
mind-
turn, he freezes the knives.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna
He's
gonna
so-
work this dude.
Oh yeah, it's just not even gonna be close. I'm sure it'll be the battle will be really well animated, but I just imagine Gojo and Geto walking out here almost unscathed.
So, just I know where you're going to. I just want to say where they were on the phone in the anime, in the manga, they were just both talking at the vending machine, and that explosion happened, and they both saw it instead of like Geto being right in front of the door when it happened.
Yeah, again, I just would love to be in the room of just like what the reasoning for something like that. Like that one seems a little bit more
I don't know. You know what? When you watch,
keep it fresh, I guess. Maybe.
yeah, keep it fresh. Again, like we already know Gojo can do shit like that. Maybe to show like Geto's capable, like evading an explosion.
Yeah.
Not to mention the movie. There were some. I don't have them written down, but there were subtle differences between like Chapter 0 and the movie that came out about Yuta. Like, you know, and I think it probably happens often in manga and anime. It's just that now for Attack on Titan and for now Jujutsu Kaisen, which we're reviewing as we speak, like we're catching them because we're trying to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, it's just fun note, but that's all. That's pretty much it in terms of the discrepancies though.
Yeah, the burning question is going to be, I think the one biggest question this episode leaves us with is that guy going to cry and apologize, or is Gojo going to kill him?
He's crying and apologizing.
You think he's going to
That's
cry
for
and
sure.
apologize?
Yeah, I think he's crying and apologizing.
All right.
There's a bigger question.
Now that we've got Dave's prediction on the board, we get the final scene where we have the Star religious group, which I have written down differently from the Time Vessel Association. Not sure why I did that. Seems to be the same.
No, because
group.
I think in the manga it's the Star.
Oh, okay, that's funny. I guess I started
I don't know
taking
how I
a
took
little
this
bit of manga
conversation,
notes.
to be honest.
Yeah, but essentially it just kind of flips Geto rather's comment that they don't need to worry about them on its head, and that they're basically hiring someone to do the work for them. They call him Zenin at the start. He says, "No, I took my wife's name. It's Fushiguro now, and he'll take the job." And that's it. That's the episode. Manga readers are Alkis' reaction with that shoo, and you get a little bit of chills at the end of that. But
Dude, yo,
So-
Dave, you're gonna fuck
You're gonna love this
I
guy.
don't know this guy, but I kind of know him because these guys know that my favorite anime trope is just like strong, arrogant, cocky people, I guess. And like
Yeah,
they
you're
got
gonna love
introduced I even remember a couple of years ago when you guys got introduced to him reading JJK. You guys were like, dude, this guy Fushiguro, like you're gonna when you meet him, like this is why you should read the manga.
dude, seriously. And I don't know how he fares against like power scaling across all anime or manga, but dude, he's really fun.
You're gonna love his power, his like thing. It's
Yeah, you're gonna love it.
it's so good.
Guess. What do you think it is?
No guess.
Come on.
That's a tough question.
Well, okay.
Bro, it's a little D&D warm up. Create the character.
I don't want to say anything because I know a detail
okay.
that I don't want our
All right.
listeners to
Yeah.
All right,
know.
fine.
All right. You're a little in the know. You're a little in the know.
Like I know a little bit about him, not unfortunately,
All right.
because it's so
All right.
little. But
I thought you knew nothing. I'm
No harm, no
pissed.
I only
foul.
know one thing. We'll talk about
All right.
off pod.
Okay,
Not like
okay,
that
okay.
big of a deal.
No harm,
to
no
me.
foul.
So they call it Star Religious Group, known as a Time Vessel Association.
Oh, okay.
Which
So-
whatever is.
So I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay. They probably were swapping it too in the anime.
in-
Yeah. All right, we're good.
All
So-
I hope is that they just Gojo and Geto just wipe the floor with these guys. This Fushiguro guy comes in and is just like, all right, now you're dealing with me. And then we just get a clean fucking fight of Gojo maybe getting his ass kicked by this guy. Who knows? At his
Interesting
young age.
because they were discrediting the Time Vessel Association and they
Yeah,
have
so-
something up their sleeve.
Okay, just so clarify me on they were hiring the Time Vessel Group Association is hiring him to basically make sure that their plan is going through.
Yeah. So basically, like when Geto says earlier, like they don't need to worry about them because they don't have any sorcerers.
That's- okay.
They're hiring this guy
Got it.
essentially to be their muscle
Got it.
to get rid of the Star Plasma Vessel.
Got it.
Yeah, that's kind of all you really need to know at the end of this. Like I said, at kind of the top, not a metric ton of things happen. It's a good reintroduction to our characters for the most part. We get a little bit of a flashback. Obviously, things will heat up. We'll be back covering every single episode.
Oh, I didn't listen to the outro either.
It's
Did you
okay.
listen?
We'll talk about. We can
Okay,
talk
next
about it.
one, next
Yeah,
one.
we can even just talk about it when we get a new one, and we'll talk about the old one and the new one. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's going to be it for me. I don't have any lasting comments. Alki, if you have anything you want to bring up towards the end.
No,
here?
just I think it's cool. You get a glimpse of curse users outside of the school, because they hinted at it. Obviously, Mahito and whatever that group, like they're not associated. They're not. What is the word for them? Like, there's an official term. The people that are with the school are an official term, and then people that are not with the school are curse users.
Oh, you're okay. I know what you're talking about. I don't know off the top of my head.
They're not like witches. Like, you're saying they have abilities, but they don't go to the school essentially.
Yeah, so
Yeah. They bring it up too in the first season for sure, and obviously it's a thing in the manga.
okay.
but-
Jujutsu sorcerer is
Okay.
like when they're affiliated with an official organization like the schools, and then a curse user is somebody's rogue.
Okay.
So you see like the
okay.
the curse users are rogue. So you see like there are people who are not with the school, like kind of like in Magicians, how there were the all the people except for
What's her name? The main woman.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, Julia's a part of the.
Julia.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
get our key tattoos, all of the above. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's like that. It's kind of cool. And also, I have one thing to add. I know your intro went pretty long, but I think the reason we weren't all together was because you didn't live in Philly yet, bro. And now you do.
Oh shit!
So welcome to the hood.
Was that really what was going on when we did
Yeah.
it? Oh
you,
shit!
You would come over for Sundays for football, and we were
Oh,
sometimes,
yeah.
but you would leave.
Good times. Classic.
Yeah.
We've
Classic.
upgraded. We're men now.
Yeah.
We live in the
Yeah.
city.
About when the Attack on Titan came out before you moved here, because
Yeah.
you just moved here this past fall.
Yeah, I appreciate you doxing me.
Oh shit.
I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter. Okay, Dave. Any parting shots?
I feel like I had one thing, but it's clearly not important if I don't remember it. Just happy to be
Yeah,
here.
we'll bring it up. I just remembered one that I have, even though I literally just said I don't have any, is that the animation is clearly a little different. They've done some interesting things, I think, with the background of things. Sometimes they're really like when Urahime went in the room
Mhm.
and like the bed was, it looked like a painting in a weird way.
Mhm.
It was like very smooth. And then like her was very sharp. I think the characters looked good consistently. The background itself was a little wonky at times, but in my opinion, I'm not someone that like cares so much about that. I know the story's gonna bang, the fights are gonna be amazing, so I'm not really worried about it. Just felt like would be wrong if we didn't mention the animation.
That was
Yeah.
actually what I wanted to bring up. So I'm
nice.
glad you mentioned
Yeah.
it, because I think
We were of
people
similar
mostly
mind.
had a negative feeling towards it based off what I saw. But I honestly, I've seen when animation gets shitty. Like, I don't know if how many of these people have listened to Black Clover or watched Black Clover, but like that was like decent animation for a while, and then there was like this major fight that happens, and it's just like completely shot, like almost like the Naruto pain fight a little bit, but like
Ooh.
even worse, to a worse extent.
Okay, that's wild.
But here it's like you can tell it's like a little
It's
more
just it's
fluid,
off.
I guess. I don't know. It just feels like
Is
they're
it-
like more loose, but I liked it. It
Yeah.
still didn't bother
It's
me.
like
I think,
blurred lines almost.
and I will say too, I feel like in my experience too, also with these newer animes, sometimes some moments are a little bit less animated, but they save those better animated moments for like
Yeah.
the fights. Like
I'm
I'm
okay
sure the
with that.
fights will be clear, crystal clear, look great. Whereas these moments where they're walking, I could care less if they.
Maybe it's
look
because
good or
it's a
not.
background. Maybe it's because it's a.
And it also could have been a stylistic choice
Backstory.
in the sense that like we want to make it feel like, tense a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to be a haunted house. It felt like that a little bit with how they animated.
I
it.
didn't even want to bring it up because people online are like a piss about it, but I think
I think
worrying
they're
about
they're
that,
watching
yeah.
too much Demon Slayer.
like
That's the
worried
issue.
about
Gonna put it on the board.
worrying
Yeah.
about that.
I don't mind.
I don't want it to take away. It doesn't take away from the story at all. So it's
Nope.
like no point even,
No. So all right, that's gonna wrap the first episode of season 2 Jujutsu Kaisen coverage. Obviously, our intro was long as fuck, so I'll keep the outro short as fuck. If you stayed this long, we appreciate you. If you want to keep listening, obviously the best way is to just subscribe, whatever you're listening on. Bingetown TV, at Bingetown TV rather, is us on Twitter and Instagram. I mentioned the Discord earlier. Yada yada yada. We'll be here every episode. So apparently,
maybe not here.
Yeah,
here.
true. We'll be in your ears and in your eyeballs every episode. I think the season's supposed to go pretty long. I know there's like a little bit of a weird little break at like the end of August,
Classic.
start of September type of area.
Season 1 was 24. So
Yeah, I think it's like planned as like a season 1 recap episode and then a season 2 recap episode, which feels like maybe we won't cover those, but maybe we'll take a hiatus. But we'll be back pretty much every actual episode that's here. We're gonna cover it. So thanks for listening and stick around.
Kaizuko Oni. Ottawa.